Well, unless Trump does what he's doing.
All right, so tourism is a part of international trade. So one of the things I learned in one of my courses, I don't know whether it was fit or not, it might have been an economic geography course, is that a country gains wealth by three main methods. One, you export products and services from your country. Two, you can attract foreign investment to your country. Or three, you can attract tourists who spend foreign money in your country. There might be some others, but that's something that stuck out in one of the courses I took. And since we're talking about tourism, that's the third one. And so all the information about tourism, of course, comes from this particular site. It comes from the World, what's it called? Okay, yeah, the World Travel and Tourism Council. So there might be a little bit of bias for it because it's come from their site, but apparently they've done quite a lot of research on it, so let's just kind of read what they say. So that organization spearheaded a global analysis of the economic importance of this sector for over 20 years, and it's established a contribution of travel and tourism on an ongoing basis to over 180 countries in absolute size, share of the economy and growth. Around the world, the WTTC research is referenced as the authoritative source of the role of tourism in generating GDP, income, and employment. So basically the rest are the slides are from the findings from the WTTC. But I've heard similar things from other sources too. To gain perspective on the comparative advantages of travel and tourism, it is important to first understand its size and growth relative to other sectors. The following industries were analyzed and compared to travel and tourism. They were selected as having a similar breadth and global presence as travel and tourism. Mining includes extraction of oil, natural gas, coal, and metals. Education includes all levels of educational services. Chemicals, manufacturing includes drugs, medicines, plastics, rubber, paint, polishes, and perfumes, and the others. And automotive manufacturing includes motor vehicles, parts and accessories. Communications includes postal services, national and private, and telecommunications. And financial services includes banking, investment, services, insurance. The analysis examines the economic value of industries on three levels: direct, indirect, and induced. Do you want me to go into detail, or do you just sort of kind of get it? Okay. The sum of direct, indirect, and induced impacts equals the total economic impact of a sector. So absolute size and growth in 2011, travel and tourism generated $2 trillion in direct GDP, that's worldwide. This contribution to global GDP is more than double that of the automotive industry and 1/3 larger than the global chemical industry. The travel and tourism sector is 3/4 the size of the global education, communications, and mining sectors. With the addition of indirect and induced economic impacts, the total GDP impact of travel and tourism was $6.3 trillion in 2011. This impact is larger than of some of the most important manufacturing sectors, namely automotive and chemicals and manufacturing, chemical manufacturing. At 1.9% of global GDP, travel and tourism generates more economic output than the automotive manufacturing, which is 7.9%, mining at 8%, and chemical manufacturing at 9%. Travel and tourism contributes roughly the same share of global GDP as the global education, the economic advantages of travel and tourism, and communication industries. In every region of the world, the travel and tourism industry directly contributes more to GDP than the automotive manufacturing. In the Americas, travel and tourism GDP is 3 times larger than auto manufacturing. In Europe, travel and tourism GDP is twice the size of auto manufacturing.
They have smaller cars.
Of course. Someone said they have smaller cars in Europe. Okay. Travel and tourism GDP is larger than the chemical industry in every world region except Asia, where it is only 9% lower. In terms of employment, the importance of travel and tourism is even more pronounced. With 98 million people directly employed in 2011, travel and tourism directly employs 6 times more than automotive, 5 times more than global chemicals, 4 times more than mining, 2 times more than communications, and 1/3 more than the global financial services. With a total impact of 8.7% of world employment, travel and tourism is one of the leading job creators in the world. The industry has sustained 255 million jobs in 2011. This exceeds the jobs impacts of auto manufacturing, chemicals, manufacturing, and mining, and is nearly on par with education. The Oxford Economics Global Industry Model projects travel and tourism direct industry GDP to grow at an average of 4.2% year over year for the next decade, greater than the 3.6% average annual growth expected for the total global economy. So, share of exports. Travel and tourism is an export industry when it provides services to international visitors and draws in spending from abroad. The industry represents a substantial share of total exports for many countries around the world, forming an essential component of global trade. Travel and tourism is a particularly attractive option to stimulate development in rural and low-income countries and regions that previously relied heavily on agriculture and natural resource extraction. Tourism development often provides the dual advantages of generating employment and income while promoting cultural heritage and traditions. That might be good for Ukraine, eh? Some parts of their economy. You have Cossack tours, right? Sort of.
We're doing that
Yeah,
for
actually,
indigenous people.
Yeah, yeah. Learn to ride a horse, you know? Promoting travel and tourism can support economic development, in part because the industry cuts across and is linked to many other industries in the economy, generating additional demand in a wide range of services and professions. Travel and tourism drives foreign trade. Given the cultural, language, and time differences that exist between the countries, face-to-face meetings are integral to developing international business relationship and a key driver of world trade. While video conferencing and other remote communication technologies have become much more popular in recent years, they tend to complement business travel rather than replace it. Travel and tourism encourages investment. Trade and investment follow each other. The benefits that business travel brings to international trade also foster investment by domestic firms and by foreign direct investors. Foreign direct investments, FDI, that result from business travel introduces capital, technology, skills, people, know-how, demand for local supplies to the domestic economy, and brings improvements in trade balances. Travel and tourism develops infrastructure and services. I've been going to Ukraine since 1991. You guys have been going since 1992, and maybe previous to 1991? How long have you been going to
I've
Ukraine?
only been once.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was there in the 70s.
Okay, so you in particular can see a vast improvement in just the quality of services, infrastructure, such things as hotels, right?
Yes.
Public toilets, which they probably didn't exist at all, which now actually you can find.
I think public toilets may have been better in '92 than they are now.
That's not my experience.
Oh, no. Now they have
Yeah.
toilet.
That's true.
Yeah,
Without splinters.
yeah.
But they used to have actual public toilets in the underpasses under Fish Chapel.
No, you don't go there. No, you don't go there. But I'm talking about like a toilet in a hotel or in a restaurant.
Yeah.
You actually have toilets
those are better, yeah.
in the hotels and restaurants. But also the entire infrastructure is better. I mean, you know, the stores, you know, the cafes, you know, like the multitude, even the quality of the sidewalks are better than they used to be before, you know. So demand for travel and tourism, both internationally and domestic, stimulates investment. In 2011, $650 billion in capital investment, or 4.5% of total, was driven by travel and tourism. While a portion of this is related to individual investments in facilities that directly benefit tourists, such as the construction of hotels and resorts, travel and tourism also drives infrastructure improvements that collectively benefit tourists, local residents, and the wider economy. And there I can refer to things like the trains are much better, the buses are much better, the airports are certainly much better in Ukraine. You know,
Well, I like the older trains because they have a better cafeteria.
the new ones are
Away
faster.
from Vancouver.
No, you could socialize.
But when I went into Ukraine in 1991 into Boryspil, what a gloomy little place it
Oh,
was.
yeah.
You know, it actually reminded me of the movie Romancing the Stone, where they fly into Cartagena and then they go outside outside the bus station, and it's sort of like all these people with like carts and donkeys. Well, Boryspil was almost like that,
There were
you know,
weeds
in
growing
1991.
between the
You know?
concrete slabs of the landing strip.
And I remember when I was with someone else, we were going for the Международная Ukrainska Школа in 1991, and when we went outside the airport, that's exactly what we thought. This reminded us a lot like Romancing the Stone. And we both said to each other, what are we doing here?
Yeah, but tell them about the cafeteria cars in the old train.
Yeah. And I remember though, speaking of washrooms, they had one toilet inside Borisville, just when you get off the plane. The door was broken, the light didn't work. And that was your entrance into Ukraine, and they had like all this brown paper on the windows when you went in there. It was a very gloomy, dark kind of place, and not much of a welcome if you're a tourist. Much better airport now, of course. Yeah. Mind you, that was the Soviet Union too, right? So, but still, it shows you how much the country has changed. Travel and tourism is a force for economic development through diverse and powerful channels. For example, a well-developed travel and tourism industry can improve access to international markets, enhance business relationships, and increase trade opportunities. I mean, for example, you have a business meeting, you want to have a nice airport to welcome people, you want to have a nice hotel for them to go to, you want to have roads they can drive on, right? You don't want to be bounced out of your taxi, by bumpy roads, which actually almost happened to me once.
They don't really have those things.
Increased connectivity that comes from travel and tourism can drive domestic and foreign direct investment and enhance a region's attractiveness as a place to locate a headquarters, distribution, or manufacturing center. Investment in public and private infrastructure such as construction of accommodations, retail and food services facilities, and hard infrastructure such as roads, bridges, and air transportation capacity provide benefits to all economic sectors as well as households. And travel and tourism supports economic developments via intense inter-industry linkages, remittances, and cultural heritage preservation. So you see the organization that's doing this is really trying to show the maximum output, how far-reaching tourism can be. So without the connectivity provided by travel and tourism sector, regions would find it hard to attract foreign direct investment. So access to airport hubs is critical for increased foreign direct investment. So the question I would ask, can increased tourism help both Canada and Ukraine? Well, I'm going to answer that. Of course it can. It can help any country. Now, are there opportunities for partnering between these two countries? Is there opportunities to partner between Canada and Ukraine? Well, you have to decide that on yourself. So. Okay, discussion.
Just make a general comment. I remember when I was a lot younger, and probably even in high school, I read something that they were comparing Canada's economic output with that of Japan per capita, industrial output. Mm-hmm. And Canada had 30 times as many lawyers and accountants per capita as Japan had, and Japan had 30 times as many engineers per capita as Canada had. Mm-hmm. And the thing about lawyers and accountants is, well, they make salaries, but they don't actually create anything. They just redistribute wealth, usually to themselves. But anyway, I'm wondering how much wealth, on a global scale, tourism will create wealth in a locality if people come from outside the country there. But I don't know how much it creates wealth in that sense.
Well, you're transferring money from country A to country B.
Yeah. So
and there's two, and of course, if you go to hotels, obviously a lot of hotels are owned by chains, so it's international chains. So a lot of the money that, say, for example, would be spent in Ukraine, would say Hilton, would actually leave Ukraine. But then again, if you then walk down the street into a market and you're buying something made by a local person, now you're actually going. You're putting money into the pocket of the average person.
That if tourism increases wealth in an area, then that area may increase its activity in other sectors which actually do create something.
Well, that's why they talk about it's connected to other things.
I think the reason why tourism will be a wealth generator is because of what Michael said about employment. Compared to other industries, it is a job generator.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's going to keep being that way. Like the industry I'm in, computers and networks, it's not a job generator, and it's going to be less and less of that. Fewer and fewer people, you need fewer. And so
that's what they told me. That's what they said back when I was in undergrad, and it's not been the case.
Yeah, well, the numbers are going down.
Are they?
Fewer people can manage larger numbers and bigger networks and so on. That's just the nature of computer technology. But as long as people need hotel beds made and meals served and buses driven, tourism will always be an employment generator, and that's salaries, that's taxes being paid, that's local communities, and then that's the local supermarket being supported and everything.
Yeah.
In fact, that's why I want to bring up an example I heard last fall, because Father Lee, the Orthodox Church, is organizing these series of newcomer orientation sessions to Canada. And one woman was talking about how Ukrainians, for example, or anybody from another country can come get a work visa in Canada. Said basically, no matter what your qualifications are, say for example, she gave this one example, suppose you're a really good receptionist in Ukraine, and you want to come to Canada on a work visa, and you put down, I want to work as a receptionist. Well, there's no shortage of receptionists in Canada, so your likelihood of getting a company like an XYZ company to fill out an application to bring you out as a receptionist to Canada is very low because they can hire locally. However, they said that same person, if they were to apply for a job at a hotel in Banff as a chamber person, and whereas there's a huge shortage of, that company, like in Banff, the hotel, Banff Springs Hotel, whatever, they will write a sponsorship letter to bring that person in to work in the hotel. And you will get that in most cases. So if you want to come into the country, you go around, you apply for the job that there's a shortage in. And here's the case where the tourism industry, a person can work in. So they
being the pessimist I am, I'll give you a counter example. So there's no shortage of engineers, especially after Nortel went under in the early 2000s. And yet they were still importing huge numbers of foreign engineers. The companies, I guess, were encouraging the government to do this because I think in the end the companies wanted people that they could pay less. So in fact they were destroying opportunities for Canadian engineers.
Okay, folks,
But anyway,
we gotta stop right now.
To do with tourism, yeah.
This has got nothing to do with tourism.
can-
Let's use the Ukrainian example.
Yeah.
Bukovel, Olympic class ski resort, built within the last 15 years in the Carpathian Mountains. Ivano-Frankivsk Airport, which is about the size of Thompson Airport, is now an international airport because people from all across Europe are coming for excellent cheap skiing in Bukovel. That employs there are thousands of people working there. There's a lot of money going through there. And the whole airline business, including the Ukrainian one, feeds off that. And there are a hell of a lot of examples in Ukraine for that. It was one of the primary goals of the Ukrainian government at the beginning of the 2000s to develop tourism. As a matter of fact, I ended up touring groups across Canada from Ukraine, studying our tourist system. Unfortunately, as soon as the government changes, everybody changes, so all those people were booted out. But tourist potential, exactly as you were saying, Michael, brings in a lot of cash for minimal capital investment compared to anything else. And Ukraine has got, you name it, whatever kind of tourism you want to do, Ukraine has it in bucketfuls, and Ukraine is more and more capable of doing it because more and more people are learning English and other languages in Ukraine. And it really also opens up the country and it brings in people to Ukraine who see the country and realize what it is, and it helps counter propaganda.
And look what was high profile just this year, and it was Eurovision.
Yes.
And
Yes.
look at I think the government of Ukraine did an excellent job promoting it, getting it out there. The numbers they got there were not bad, like 40,000 people who would not otherwise have gone to Kiev at all. And and they get the testimonials, right? Hey, this place is great. And then people put it together and say, this was no more difficult to get to than to Tallinn, Estonia. And people were used to, let's go there for the weekend,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Really?
And now they're saying, well, we could go to Kiev for the weekend. What's the big deal? And there is no big deal. And that was the lesson. And they went home and they talked about it. And, Eurovision, it was so much fun. And you were just watching it on TV, kind of thing.
It's kind of the same with Euro 2012, the Euro Cup. So.
Yes, very much so.
I can tell you, sorry.
Already there,
Yeah.
talking about is there potential
Oh,
for
yeah.
Canada to get
Yeah.
involved. But if you go, like Truskavets, for example, where they have many, many health spas, they have a long history of attracting people from Europe, centuries ago even. And they're there, there are all sorts of resorts, spas, hotels, where the Ukrainians have partnered with Europeans.
Is that in Zakarpattia, that area you're talking about?
No, Prekarpattia, Truskavets.
Oh, okay.
The other side of the mountain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I know in Zakarpattia they have hot springs there and they have resorts there as well.
Yes, they have
Way
that as
back.
well.
Yeah.
And
I
there's-
just want to ask before, is this Bukovel ski, is it private or public?
The resort itself has been privately developed. It's on public land. The way we have Banff and other ski resorts here, same sort of thing there.
Yeah, Bukovan is the actual area, and there are many different hotels, resorts, ski clubs, ski chalets.
Yeah, I've been there actually. It's really
not
nice.
just one.
Yeah.
And many of them are European owned
Mhm.
or European partners partnering with Ukrainians.
Yeah, Ukraine gets, some years in the Carpathian Mountains, they get quite a lot of snow. I remember being there in late March, early April, in Ivano-Frankivsk and looking at the mountains and still snow-covered, like, you know, so,
Yeah.
yeah, they're fairly high.
Was there a consideration of environmental impacts?
Of what?
At the time it was built, probably not,
Never.
minimally
Yeah.
so.
But what do you think the potential is for Canada for tourism? I mean, going beyond the family and this kind of thing. Because I'm thinking about what I saw recently. I was in Lviv Oblast, and there were just so many bus tours of Poles, and they were going around and they were looking at the old Polish castles and the sites and this kind of thing. And I thought, that's great, and you can see the obvious connection. I'm thinking, but what's the connection for Canadians beyond, you know, the
Well,
family?
you have
I
some,
think it's genealogical in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You know, we have lots of tour groups going out of Edmonton. They've sort of been catalysts for that. So people are curious about their background. They're curious about what they've heard about.
And it goes beyond the traditional. A friend of a friend is a descendant of German Mennonites, but they lived along the Dnipro River.
yeah.
You know, and that's not the usual, you know, Ukrainian Canadian. They don't just speak English, but they wanted to go.
Yeah.
But the Mennonites have had tours, including cruises down the Dnipro.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
what they
for
wanted to do.
years, I can remember maybe 10 years ago, going to a presentation within the Mennonite community here in Ottawa,
Mhm.
where they had presentation about that. So what's happening, it's happening
Schreiber was
outside.
a Ukrainian Mennonite, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, part of his family goes to Ukraine. You have a whole series of things. I mean, Ukraine was a pale of Jewish settlement, part of it. So you have large numbers of Jewish families in Canada that trace themselves back to or are interested in it. And wherever you go in Ukraine, you can find either redeveloped or still pretty rough remnants of Jewish existence, cemeteries, that sort of thing, museums. There's a lot of travel there for that purpose, and you see it on the internet, on Facebook. You have that, you have all the ethnic groups we talked about. The Poles that go to the Poles, a lot of the Poles that came to Canada as refugees were refugees from Western Ukraine. But a lot of tension there, but exactly as you saw, they like to travel and see where their grandparents, whatever, came from.
Yeah.
I think you have, as Vicky said, genealogical tourism. You have recreational tourism. We talked about skiing, but you have the biggest caves in Europe are in Ukraine, for Spilad caves, that sort of thing. You have one of the groups I dealt with were national parks, and they have, depending where you are, because they have different levels of preserves, nature preserves. You can go there, live in a log cabin, walk, hike, have experiences of all sorts, you know, they'll organize campfires for your traditional events. You also have, if you want, well, the guys from Britain used to go to Tallinn to get drunk. To be blunt about it, you can do the same thing in Ukraine as well, very well and very nicely.
Yeah.
At a lower cost.
At a lower cost.
And it's always been a moving target. I remember when the Berlin Wall fell, everyone wanted to go to Prague. Oh, it was cheap, and it was so easy to get to. But that's not true anymore. And then they moved east. It actually is.
And you get the full range of historical, religious stuff you can play with. The same way exactly, Prague and the same way Central European tourism grew, Ukrainian can. And the facilities are there, and Ukrainians are partnering with foreign corporations. And as a result, they're learning how to run these things.
And that's it. You got to learn how to market it, how to get the people there, how to present it. Like, I came across this thing a while ago. Something. Don't you love it when you find out something you had no clue about? There's a place called Kamyanka Mohila, and it's near Melitopol. You've heard of it. See, I hadn't. And so the moment I heard about it, Kamyanka Mohila, it's a burial mound, and it was excavated in Soviet times, and they found petroglyphs. A little bit of a debate about it, amongst archaeologists, but it could date from the time of Sumer.
Or even
So in
before.
other words, the
Yeah.
earliest human civilizations.
Yeah.
And
Actually,
it doesn't look like it was a settlement, it looks like it was some kind of a religious kind of place. But like, this is amazing.
some people are speculating that it dates back
Crimea, they-
23,000 years, I think.
Yeah, and and they're tying it to like ancient accounts about, you know, legendary land. And by the way, that it existed before the Black Sea was a sea,
Yeah.
right?
The theory is that the reason that you have Sumer and this crescent of civilization south of what's the Black Sea now, is that because the people who lived along the old shores of the Black Lake had to move
Yeah.
quickly when the Dardanelles.
The same logic of
Yeah.
the Varangians and all this kind of thing, exactly. But, you know, let the archaeologists debate about it, but in the meantime, let's go see this place.
And I think you put your finger on the
Because
key
this thing's
element.
older than Stonehenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's packaging and marketing it.
Yeah.
And that's,
Mhm.
if we're talking about business opportunities for Canadians,
Yes.
that I think is the key element.
And just as to build on what Flores just said, so everybody knows about this place they discovered in Turkey called Götepe Tekli or something like this. It's 9,000 years old. It has these pictures of animals that never lived in that part of the world. But it's been talked about in the newspaper a few times. Nobody has mentioned what you're talking about in Ukraine that is perhaps twice as old or more.
And they'll find out eventually what that is. Yeah. And one thing you're mentioning too about if you want to do partnering in Ukraine, and of course you've been to Ukraine like we have, some of us quite a few times, and if you want to run economic tours into Kiev, you can take people on a walking tour of Khreshchatyk, but then you don't take them to any restaurants in Khreshchatyk, you take them one street off where the price suddenly drops down to a third or a quarter even more. I mean, what's that place, was that the hot? It's like a cafeteria style place. Wonderful Ukraine food at really nice prices as compared to going into a restaurant on Khreshchatyk. You're going to pay more than you will in Ottawa for a bowl of soup, you know, so. And tourists really appreciate that, right?
Economy, that's why we do that.
What's that?
We support the local economy that.
No, but it's because generally that's where the business people would go on Khreshchatyk, right? But the tourists, they want a deal, right? They want to, and it's more, I think those cheaper places are more fun to go to anyways.
I went to the Irish pub across from the Golden Gates,
Oh, yeah?
and their menu was only in Russian, and I said to the waitress, I'd like to speak only in Ukrainian. And I ordered a small beer, and she brought me a large one for the price of a small one. So,
Oh, that's pretty good.
You know, having something sort of all-inclusive and organized is important for a lot of people
Yeah.
who still aren't aware that, you know, there's so much English that is spoken there,
Yeah.
that people do understand English, who, you know, maybe have some fears about going to a country where they don't know the
And it
language.
depends too who your market is. For example, if you are tailoring a luxury tour to Ukraine, yeah, then you go to places like Khreshchatyk. But if you're targeting economy people, even like younger people, of course you want to show them where the bargains are, right? So that's.
I mean, as observers, election observers, we stayed in some very nice, very decent places outside, like an hour outside of the big cities for the equivalent of 10, 20 euros a night. Very nice. And that there's got to be a lot of attraction. I mean, the prices will probably go up.
Mhm, but OBD is something.
I just want to tell you, I went to Ireland in the mid-late 70s, Waterford, and back then tourism hadn't caught on very yet in Ireland. And during the middle of the week, I wanted to go have lunch at this restaurant. They had, I think it was called the Yankee Doodle. They had two restaurants in town. They had the main one, then they had a smaller one. And the smaller one, I went to it at lunch, but I couldn't get lunch because they had a sign up saying closed for lunch, you know.
Yeah.
So they weren't quite getting it, were they? Yeah.
But that's a change. Like my,
Oh, yeah.
my very
Yeah.
first visit to
Yeah.
you know
Mhm.
Ukraine, and a group of us, we were in Podil, and we walk into a restaurant, and
Yeah.
all the staff were sitting around the front table, and it was. You know,
So it was hotel sports?
yeah. It's like, what do you want? Walking into a restaurant at noon,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Now that's changed totally. The super friendly service,
Yeah.
is all- but there's still incredible challenges. And I'll just mention this:
Yeah.
Ukraine is not a place for disabled travelers.
No.
It's just,
Sometimes
and you look at other markets, and they're on that. you know,
Yeah.
so there's so far to go.
Except for the McDonald's. I noticed the McDonald's, sorry, McDonald's have ramps at all the restaurants I've seen in Ukraine.
A
you
lot
know?
of the buildings have ramps, but they're not usable unless you have very strong people pushing you up, because
Yeah.
they're as steep as a stair, so.
Well, and that's one thing I've noticed as an election observer. You go into these schools, first you need stairs to get into the school. And then when you get into the school, then it's maybe 1 flight or 2 flights to get up there.
Yeah.
And you've seen those poor elderly people just kind of just drag themselves up there, you know.
Or
And,
being carried.
you know,
I've seen them being carried. It's
Like
like
going
Yeah.
to the Zoom hall.
like the sumo. Yeah.
well, that's not too bad.
Well, I think if you're disabled, it's.
Yeah, it is. Well, that keeps people away. Well, I've made the suggestion they should, just get one of those wheelchair, those stair lifts along there, So I actually costed it out the price, but I was talking to Walter
It's
Rizek. He
less than
said
4,000.
they can't get the cheaper one because it's a public place. They need to get the more robust one. I think it costs around $10,000 or something like that. But that's the answer I got.
Yeah.
But they should have something like that there because it is an elderly population now. Yeah.
No, we should have a community center that doesn't have those liability issues. That's what we should have.
Well, I think we should
Perhaps
have.
we should have our next speaker on so we can hear the
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
I want to hear our next speaker, and I'm going to
Yes.
apologize because I have to leave for a business appointment.
Sure.
So
Okay.
I do get up. It has nothing to